You know what? It's been a minute and we haven't talked about it in a while. Let's check in on good old failed woke Mayor Jyoti Gondek of Calgary, shall we? Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Now, for everybody who watches my videos, whether you're in Canada, different provinces across the country, or in other countries like the United States, I've had people in my community reach out to me from places like New Zealand. So everybody who watches all over the world has definitely tuned into my commitment to join in the running for mayor when it comes to Calgary's next civic. I almost said civil. It might be a civil war, a civic election, as I've thrown my hat into the ring to run for mayor as an open candidate that I'm not linked to any politicians. I don't want to see this city overrun by poor spending choices and corrupt political gains any longer. And one thing I've always talked about is our woke failed mayor, Jyoti Gondek. Now, while anybody who lives outside of Calgary might not be interested in these things, it's important, I think, to take note of what's happening in Calgary simply because this is what's happening in other cities across the country and throughout the world. This is all part of an installed agenda. People like Jyoti Gondek, who again receive a lot of funding at the 11th hour from special interest groups. And again, I question if a lot of them come from places like the CCP. Jyoti Gondek, in my mind, again, and you won't be able to convince me otherwise, was installed as a Calgary mayor. I don't believe that she was voted. This is a city of 1.7 million people, and she won the vote with 175,000 votes and record low voter turnout, which is one thing I'm aiming to push to fix in the next civil election. But Jyoti Gondek, of course, has had her share of follies throughout last year, going into this year, and I wanted to touch base on that. If we look back to what happened during the Christmas season, I talked about this briefly, and a lot of people said, you know what, she made the right decision by not going to the menorah lighting during Hanukkah, that, you know, it's a political statement. Others said, you know, she should have gone, that she has a duty as the mayor to interact in those things. And I stand with the latter. I think that Jyoti Gondek should have gone to that ceremony. I think that traditions aside, it says something about respect for a community. For a mayor who touts about Pride Month, Pride Week, Pride Season, Pride Year, Pride Millennia, if you're going to support one group to the bitter end, you should be supporting all groups and all of their beliefs when you're the mayor of a major city that has so much diversity in terms of its population. But this leads into her biggest follies of all. And this is where we're going to get started talking about this again, just as a reminder. She had her worst month since being elected 2 years ago. It's not just her tone-deaf handling of the lighting of the menorah, it's also her failure to control Calgary's budget, which has resulted in eye-popping property tax hikes for next year. All this happened to a mayor with Biden-like approval ratings near 35% before this past month. Jyoti Gondek has stumbled along since day one, setting the climate change crisis as her top priority when she became mayor. It seemed to escape her notice that Calgary's biggest issue was the collapse of the tax base that would leave a deep hole in the city's finances. So, what's important to bring up there, and part of the problem with Jyoti Gondek, again, is she immediately called this climate change crisis just as a free check in order to spend money, spend frivolously, and tax people out of fear that the bad guys in oil and gas are going to ruin the planet. What she didn't focus on is the fact that Alberta has one of the most vacant downtown cores of any city right now. Every oil and gas business, every major business has been run out of downtown. They now talk about, well, we should turn those buildings into low-income housing. And we all know what low-income housing means when government gets involved. Of course, it's not low-income housing. It's luxury apartments for people to benefit from, or for people to get kickbacks on. Assessments on the non-residential property dropped 16% from 2018 to 2022, with many commercial buildings standing empty, especially downtown. As I said, the city no longer has a cash cow to fund its services. Not even glaring oversight compares to her decisions this past month. Calgary's budget is in shambles, with a 7.8% increase in residential property taxes coming next year, likely twice the rate of inflation. In fairness, the increase is partly due it's due to the mayor's and city council's sensible decision to shift more of the burden from non-residential to residential taxpayers. The non-residential rate is 3.8 times the residential rate, and many businesses can't cope. A $10 million property incurs $220,000 in taxes, which is almost half the $500,000 profit it would earn in a typical 5% return. The problem here, and one thing I've talked about and one thing that I hope to address when I become the mayor of Calgary, it's happening, people. NGOs, non-government organizations, they're a massive problem in this town. You think about $500,000. They're pining over $500,000 here. If you were to get rid of the funding that goes to these NGOs and shut them down, for example, if you're unaware of an NGO, and again, I've always talked about the homeless issue in Calgary on record, and I know that it's statistically higher, but on record, the homeless rate in Calgary hovers around 3,000 people. We have about 9 different agencies that I'm aware of that are NGOs that deal with the homeless crisis. 9 funded businesses that all operate to help end homelessness. Meanwhile, shelters don't have enough resources. They don't have enough beds. They don't have food. Food banks are going stale with supply, and they just don't have what they need. If I was the mayor of this town, I'd be saying, where is our money going? If you've ever seen a movie like Office Space, I'd love to get some efficiency experts in to say, where's the money being wasted? And where can we take it out of there so that we can lower people's business taxes, we can lower people's property taxes, we can essentially lower them down to zero if we just cut out this ridiculous level of spending that comes from these entitled bureaucrats who sit inside Calgary City Hall. This could happen in any city where you have a municipality. This could happen in any province. If they were to really look at the funding that goes out and the amount of wasted revenue, you could clamp all that down to make life better for your constituents. When you talk about the old Alberta is calling slogan, people would be moving here in droves to run their companies, to have better opportunities, to buy homes, if their taxes were lower. This isn't about tax. This is about how they continue to pad their pockets and fund their little schemes. Despite the switchover, non-residential property owners still face an increase of 3.8% in property taxes in 2024. Well, that's where things have changed. Menorah aside, she actually raised taxes 7.8% on homeowners, and she says it should be a one-time measure. Now, that word is the important one to measure here. Should. This is the usual smoke and mirrors that comes from politicians. Oh, this should only be a one-time thing. Remember, guys, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? No, this is going to be an ongoing thing. If you've been around Calgary or if you've paid attention to Calgary politics, when Naheed Nenshi was the mayor, or as I called him, Nenshit, he raised taxes every single year like clockwork. It was always there. And then every year, like clockwork again, self-appointed raises for city council. You'd have the occasional city council member who would vote against the raise and say, we don't need this. The mayor of Calgary makes over $200,000 a year. That's a $250,000 job she's got. To do what? Build $2 million sculptures in Calgary to virtue signal and put tampons in bathrooms? 7.8 property tax increase for Calgary homeowners in 2024 should be an anomaly, not the norm. In the coming years, according to Calgary City Mayor, in the year-end interview with Post Media, failed Mayor Jyoti Gondek says Calgarians shouldn't expect to shoulder a similar increase when council conducts budget adjustments next November. So we're supposed to sit until November 2024 to make sure that hey, we got it all under control, people. Our goal was to really make the difficult decision this year to create a base budget that actually funds things properly, she said. Our goal is never to take a 4-year budget plan and start changing it unless it's absolutely necessary. The big problem here is Jyoti Gondek just built a $2 million sculpture in front of a convention center. Jyoti Gondek has silenced people from protesting. She's talking about charging residents throughout the entire city for paid parking, meaning the street out front of my home. Now, while at the end of my driveway, that becomes city property, I'm being told that in order to park on the street, if I have guests who come to my home, I'm supposed to buy parking passes now that I pay annually for, and I believe it works out to $200 to $300 a year per pass that I'm supposed to pay just for somebody to be able to park outside my home. Now, take into consideration, I also have neighbors, and if they have visitors and they all have parking passes, which they've paid for, and there's no room on the street for them to park, then what are we supposed to do? You're apparently only allowed one vehicle in your driveway before getting another pass. So I would have to have passes for my own vehicles in my home, and then guest passes that I would additionally have to buy for if a family member comes to visit and stays overnight, or a friend comes to visit from out of town, or even my father drives over from his neighborhood, which he pays for parking for, to come and park out front of my house to maybe visit his grandkids for a few hours. I'm supposed to have a parking pass for that while she spends. Council people of Calgary have said before this year, Jyoti Gondek has a spending problem, not a budget problem. While council approves the city's budgets every 4 months, or every 3 months, every quarter, and the last did so in 2022, members have the opportunity to adjust, every 4 years. I apologize, not 4 months. Members have the opportunity to adjust the budget every November. This year, council voted 9-6 to approve budget adjustments for 2024. So again, you have 6 people saying, no, we're not doing this, while another staggering 9 who are Chinese influenced and installed, or just fart huffing virtue signalers saying, nope, that sounds like 7.8 sounds like a good rate. The contentious budget included a 5% residential tax hike, which was higher than the 3.4% increase council originally passed for the 4-year budget. It was a higher increase than Calgarians have grown accustomed to, according to city staff. Calgary's residential property tax averaged at 1.19% increase from 2019 to 2023. Lower than comparable Canadian cities, including Vancouver and Edmonton, Calgarians saw minor property taxes decrease in 2020 and 2021. Well, that was because an election year was coming. They had to kiss people's butts. The reason for the above average increase is twofold, apparently. Part of it is based, council approved adjusting the property tax share between residential and non-residential properties by 1%. This means next year households should shoulder 53% of the city's tax burden instead of the previous 52%, while businesses take on 47%. Calgary city staff say the 1% shift results in households paying an additional $4 per month on taxes on average. No, that is wrong. I just received a reassessment in December saying that, hey, by the way, when your tax... So we have a thing in Calgary called the tax installment payment plan, which instead of paying your taxes annually, and again, I know some cities don't do this, other ones do, but it's called TIP. We send a void check to the city, and they just take our property tax installments monthly rather than annually. The difference in what it's equated to, that at least I got in November, said my property taxes were going up $75 per month for this recent increase. And people say, well, that's $75. It's not, when you add up the cost of fuel these days, the cost of groceries, everything else, it's really not that much. Yes, it is. The problem, and I've said before, the problem that I've said a million times over in this city is that on a scale of 1 to 10, we're charging people an 11 and we're giving them a 3. We're not producing the services that should be granted for the money that's paid to shoulder the city's budgetary problems. Again, when you add up wasted money through services that are no longer required, NGOs, overstaffing, researching, different studies that are done, trips, plans that shouldn't be put into motion that are costing the city money, NGOs. If you were to eliminate all unnecessary spending, you could still run a very prominent and productive city that sticks to its budgets while also drastically reducing the burden on its taxpayers. And that's the problem with the city of Calgary. And it's also my pitch to run for mayor, is that we can have the best of both worlds. We just have to have discipline, and we have to get rid of corruption. Corruption is the problem. These installed council people and mayors and government, these installed provincial leaders, these installed federal employees and prime ministers who simply seek to pad their pockets and gain from everybody's misfortune by burning down a country isn't the way the world works. Many of these people seem to forget that at the end of the day, whether you're a mayor, whether you're a councilman, whether you're the premier, whether you're the prime minister of Canada, you've been voted into your position or placed, I guess, based on money. I mean, ask Olivia Chow. Um, but you're given a mandate. If I were to become mayor of Calgary, I'm given a mandate by 1.7 million people to do what's within their best interests and make their lives as affordable as I can. I'm not easily corruptible, and I'm not going to sit there and work in a place where I'm more worried about a business's bottom line and making sure their bank accounts are full rather than looking after as many people as I can to ensure that their businesses can stay open. And that, again, is where I think we're lacking leadership in this country. We need more politicians, or people that are getting into politics, I should say, that aren't tied to big business, that aren't tied to corporations, that want to take handouts and funding in order to give kickbacks later down the line or corrupt policies that only benefit the few while the many struggle. We need to get back on track. And Calgary, well, while Alberta might not be calling anymore, Calgary will be when I become mayor. And I can assure you that downtown will be full again, people will be happy, and people will be able to not only work for a living, but they'll be able to come home and pay their bills and keep as much of their paycheck as possible to ensure that they can give that money to their kids, they can invest, they can get their kids in programs, they can buy food, they can pay their bills, maybe from time to time go out and enjoy themselves. Would that be such a bad thing? I certainly don't think so. Let me know what you folks think down below in the comments. Is Jyoti Gondek as out of touch as any other one of these liberal leftist mayors? Let me know what you guys think. Again, as we talk about these things on the channel, we're often drowned in the algorithm. YouTube doesn't like us talking against Trudeau's thought police, so make sure to hit the bell for notifications. Come back and check us out every week through Monday through Friday. There's always new content dropping on this channel. Also, join us this Sunday as live streams return. Every Sunday, we'll be doing the weekly wrap here on the channel, where we go over everything that's happened in the week prior, everything coming in the week ahead, and chatting back and forth with the community about your thoughts. I'm looking forward to seeing each and every one of you there and hearing what you guys have to say. And I will see you there this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and enjoy yourselves. I'll catch you on the next one.